have been watching these engagements between Lere Olayinka and Rufai for some time now, and it seems to be snowballing into something that requires the intervention of media professionals like me and my colleagues out there. If you remember, sometime in the past, Lere Olayinka referred to Rufai as a quack journalist, as a charlatan, because he probably studied, did he call it animal science or animal physiology or whatever? Well, I'm going to come to that in a bit. Okay, I'm going to address who a journalist is by a standard definition. But before I come to that, let me first of all make some clarifications on an issue again that Mr. Lere Olayinka raised in a viral interview that held on Arise TV yesterday, where he appeared as a guest. I want to say that as a professional, what happened on Arise television yesterday leaves a sour taste in the mouth. Because both men are professional. I don't want to say they claim to be professionals. Rufai is somebody who is well respected in the journalism profession in Nigeria. So also is Lere Olayinka. For him to have been media aide to a former governor, I think for his entire eight years, I'm not too sure now. I'm talking about Rufai Oseni. And then currently media aide to Nyesom Wike. Then that also makes him a professional journalist. And what I know from our training as journalists, especially as presenters, is your ability to keep it cool when you are supposed to flare up. Yeah. Of course, the profession recognizes that there are instances where your guests can push you to the wall, okay? And then you want to bring out your normal self. But the professional in you makes you realize that you have to keep it cool. You have to set the temperature of the program. So irrespective of where your guest is trying to drag you, as a presenter, first of all, you must not let that slide. You must be on your guard. And so, to that extent, I think I would fault Rufai for allowing himself to be dragged to the mud, like we saw on Arise News yesterday, and in some other circumstances that we have seen in the past. I mean, as a professional, it doesn't matter what your guests say on the program. You don't necessarily have to hector them. We quite understand that the young man is doing a great job. He's trying his best, to be angry at the system and the people who have made the system the way it is. But you see, in venting your frustration at times, you also must always put professionalism at the back of your mind. It's very key. While I wouldn't want to compare him with some other journalists because we all have our different styles of interviewing, we must also know that there are rules, guidelines, and ethics in this profession. Rufai is no doubt a fantastic journalist. But again, when it comes to hectoring your guests, okay, this is one area he really needs to work on. As for Lere Olayinka, he also is a journalist. He should also know better than using gutter language even to address your interviewer. I mean, it's absolutely wrong on both sides. The maturity level was questionable on that occasion. The professionalism from both ends questionable, and so on and so forth. But hey, Nigerians were entertained. But at what cost when it comes to the image of the profession? Having said that, I also want to address another issue Mr. Olayinka raised on that program, where he said that a journalist is not supposed to have an opinion. No, that's absolutely wrong, actually. There are occasions where a journalist is supposed to have an opinion. And that is why you have journalistic pieces like features and editorials as far as print journalism is concerned. And when it comes to broadcast journalism, depending on the nature of the program that you do, you can have an opinion. And a very good example is that segment on the morning show where the, the presenters also act as analysts, where they have to speak to issues of the day. In that kind of a situation, you are very free to hold an opinion. Okay? But I'm going to leave the sentiments of Ruben Abati as far as Wiki is concerned, calling Wiki rude. I'm going to leave that open because for me, the word rude is just an adjective. Okay? Now, if the Wiki camp finds it offensive, that is between them and Abati. But professionally speaking, there is nothing wrong in a journalist holding an opinion. After all, neutrality in journalism is not about not taking sides on an issue. Okay? Neutrality is not also about not saying things to favor one side against the other side. Neutrality actually is about saying the truth, irrespective of who is offended at that point in time. That is what neutrality is about. That is what objectivity is about. Okay? Now, the only issue there is that there should be no element of bias, even while trying to say your truth. If today you call Wike rude and tomorrow Wike does something that is right, will you be fair enough to appreciate him for what he has done? So these are all issues that come to play in the profession of journalism. No doubt it's a murky water. Journalism is a murky water. And it takes a lot of wisdom and maturity to be able to find your way through the murky waters of journalism. Now, there's another issue I also would like to intervene based on a personal information that I have. In that program, Lere Olayinka also said that Dr. Ruben Abati probably deliberately stayed away from the program because he knew that he was going to be there. Well, I happened to have been in an event yesterday in which Dr. Ruben Abati prominently featured, and that was the launch of a biography of Chief Mrs. Oprah Benson, who, by the way, clocked 90 this year and had to launch her book yesterday. Okay? Oprah Benson, Life and Legend. That's the title of the book. And it was launched at the Civic Center, Victoria Island, Lagos, yesterday, Friday, 6th June 2025. And this book had 3 reviewers. I'm stating all this categorically just to let you know that I was actually there. Okay? 3 reviewers. The first reviewer was a veteran broadcaster, Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede. Okay? The second reviewer, also a veteran journalist, Chief J.K. Randall. And the third reviewer was Dr. Ruben Abati. Okay? Each of them reviewed different chapters of that book. Now, before he started reviewing that book, the first thing Dr. Ruben Abati said was that he did not appear on the morning show that yesterday because he needed time to put finishing touches to the review of that book that he was doing, just so that he will be able to do due diligence at that event yesterday. That was the reason he gave for not being on the morning show as of yesterday. Okay? Now, that said, I said all of these things just so that we can have a perspective as to why Dr. Abati did not feature on that program yesterday. I have the photograph you are seeing of him here now were taken by me, myself. I took him, first of all, sitting down, and then at the point when he was delivering that review. Okay, having said that, let me now come to the issue of certification in journalism. Okay, now one area that Lere Olayinka has consistently had issues with Rufai, according to him, is that Rufai is a quack because he's not certified in journalism. Okay, now there is a school of thought that believes that journalism is an open profession. And so whether you have a certificate in journalism or not, provided you have the talent, because yes, it's a talent-based profession, provided you can write very well, okay, provided you can speak good Queen's English or whatever, you qualify to be a journalist. That is one school of thought. But the school of thought that I belong to, based on what I know and what I have been taught, is that for you to be a journalist, you are a professional like a medical doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an accountant, a geographer, or any other professional. And that also means that you must be certified. As a matter of fact, if you go to the National Broadcasting Code, the NBC code, it stated very clearly what qualifies you as a journalist. A certification, even if it's just a basic certification, you should have something to prove that, oh, you have undergone some training, formal training in this particular profession. Okay, now I'll be very surprised if somebody like Rufai, with all his exposure, truly doesn't have something to call a certificate in journalism. I'll be truly very surprised. Because if it's about the funding, I don't think that with all his connection and exposure, Rufai cannot afford to have, even if it's a basic certification in journalism. I mean, there are lots of formal training centers here and there, including right here in Lagos, and in so many other places across the country. Even online, there are some formal certification centers you can have online today, credible and acceptable. So I'll be surprised actually if Rufai doesn't have one. You know why it has to be so? You see, beyond just the smooth grammar, the fine writing skills, the talent in journalism, there are so many things, particularly as they have to do with the ethics of the profession, that you will never know unless you go through a formal tutelage in a classroom setting. You might never know, including the legal aspects of the profession. Okay? So, to that extent, I strongly think that anybody who is practicing journalism and doesn't have a certificate, this is perhaps a wake up call for you to do something in that regard. Okay? Just to be certified. Just so that the likes of Lere Olayinka will not take advantage of that to call you names and run you down, even when you are doing a beautiful job like Rufai is doing on Arise TV, except, of course, hectoring his guests. I actually do not like that. I quite understand the anger, he's trying to express at the system and those who have kept the system where it is today. But irrespective of your grievances, we still have to maintain decorum as interviewers on our program. Well, by and large, these things happen in the media. You can't rule them out. That's actually the beauty of the media. But what matters most is that lessons should be learned, both from Rufai and, of course, from Lere Olayinka, and indeed from us media people who are watching from a professional point of view. Thank you. See you next time. And kindly subscribe to my channel.